The United States says Russia and Ukraine have agreed to a ceasefire in the Black Sea following talks in Saudi Arabia. Both sides will allow safe navigation of shipping and have pledged to eliminate the use of force in the area. It's the first time the two sides have agreed to stop military strikes. I'm joined by Dr. Alexander Titov, who is a lecturer in modern European history at Queen's University, Belfast. Alexander, first of all, how much do we know about this deal and how significant is it?
Well, there's been negotiations for a couple of days between the United States, separate negotiations with the Russians, and then they're negotiating separately with Ukrainians, and then agreeing positions. There's been joint statement. There has been statements issued by both United States and by the Kremlin. President Zelensky gave a press conference. So there is basically a deal agreed so far by all three sides. And there are very important elements within that deal, which, if implemented, would actually be quite a significant departure from what's been going on for the last 3 years, to be honest.
And who benefits most from the deal?
Well, if you read the Russian readout or Russian statement, then there's envisaged in these negotiations, in this deal, that there will be a lifting of sanctions against Russian banks involved in agricultural deals, in agricultural trade, and also the lifting of sanctions on more broader Russian agricultural industry, which is a major industry in Russia and a major exporter. So if those deals are implemented, that there are partial lifting of sanctions on one particular industry, the agricultural industry, in exchange for partial ceasefire in the Black Sea, then I think Russia has a lot to benefit from it. Obviously, Ukraine also will benefit in the sense that it will acquire more secure shipping and ability to sell its products, agricultural products, to the world. But I think if the sanctions are lifted, it hasn't been confirmed yet, but that's certainly what Russians are saying, then it will be a major kind of benefit for Russia, I'm afraid. I think.
So why is the Black Sea important to Russia?
Well, Russia has 4 main seas in where its ports are based, in the Arctic, in the Baltic, in the Black Sea, and then the Far East. The Baltic Sea, the Black Sea is the main supply route, trade route for its both oil, but also for agriculture. This is the main agricultural export route for Russian grain and other food products. So for it to have secure shipping through the Black Sea is important for its economy. But I think, if you look at the wider perspective as well, you also see that Russians are demanding more than that. They're demanding lifting of sanctions on all of its agricultural sector, fertilizers and food supplies, as well as shipping. So this would actually benefit hugely the Russian economy, particularly in the Black Sea, but also in a wider sense.
What's changed for Russia to agree to this deal now?
Well, I think this is very important time for them to seize the moment and see what they can get out of Trump, to be honest, because you have a major change in American administration. Biden was not interested in talking to Russia, was not interested in making deals. Now there's a new administration. Americans want to find a deal, want to find a solution, and Russians are eager to engage with it, seeing what they can get out of it without compromising on things which are really essential to them. And this deal, which what they make, if it works, as the Russians saying it should, would really be a major kind of departure from US policy in practical terms, because it would be the first time that the sanctions would actually be eased or lifted on a major sector of Russian economy. So this is a very important element of Russian strategy of fighting, but at the same time negotiating from a position of strength, something which Europeans been talking all along, ensuring that Ukraine does. But in fact, with Trump, now it is Russia which is negotiating from a position of relative strength.
And can Russia be trusted to keep to its word?
if the deal which it envisaged, which it insisted on that there is a major lifting of sanctions against some of its banks dealing with agriculture, lifting of sanctions on its shipping, on insurance to its shipping, lifting of sanctions on its agricultural sector, then yes, it will stick with this deal, because remember the first deal which they agreed, very similar to this one, in 22 to 23, which was agreed between United Nations, Turkey and Russia on one side and Ukraine on the other, envisaged that there will be some lifting of sanctions. But since the United States were not involved in the first deal, some of the sanctions which Russia insisted on lifting were not actually removed. So this time, United States is actually the one negotiating, and if it does lift sanctions, then there will be much more incentive for Russia to stick with the deal than it had before. So I think if all the agreements are implemented, then yeah, Russia will stick with that deal.
And is this a step closer to peace?
Well, there's a very small piece, and as I said, this is one of the easiest things to do, because that was already something which already been agreed before in the first year of the war. There is a benefit to all sides from this partial agreement. There is also, I have to say that there is also a part of it is the stopping of the attacks on each other infrastructure, which I think Ukraine was suffering much more because Russia had more capacity to strike energy infrastructure within Ukraine. So I think that's also a benefit to Ukraine, in addition to the naval deal as well. So it's a good start. That means that there is, with American involvement, they can actually, if the deal is actually implemented and holds, there is a potential for further steps. So this is very, very significant, because the first deal, Black Sea naval part, was agreed before and then fell apart. But the seizing of attacks on energy infrastructure, that's never been agreed before. And that's a major departure. And I think if that holds, then certainly for Ukraine, that will be a big advantage.
Will Donald Trump be seeing this deal as a job well done?
I think so, because he came to the office with the promise of stopping the war altogether within 24 hours, which then kind of became longer and longer as the deal became more obvious to him that it would be a much more complex thing to do. But nevertheless, this is the first major step forward in resolving part of this conflict. And obviously they are committing themselves in the statements they released to continue working towards further de-escalation and overall ceasefire, even if it's a temporary one, in the near future. So yeah, I think you'll be happy with this progress so far.
And what can we expect to see happen next?
Well, first of all, this will need to be implemented. Not all of it is in the power of the United States. So, for example, the Russians insist of one of its major agricultural bank, Rosneft Bank, being reconnected to SWIFT system. But the SWIFT system, which is the major payment system for banks around the world, is actually based in Belgium, and it is only European Union which can reconnect Russian bank to the SWIFT. So we'll see how far this actually goes, because obviously Europeans are not involved in it at all, but they will be expected to do their part. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not sure if it necessarily will happen, but the next step would be further discussions about the wider ceasefire, and if the conditions, what we've seen now, that the Russians actually demanding quite a lot in terms of lifting of sanctions and in terms of other elements, particularly issue of stopping of supplying Ukraine with arms during the possible ceasefire. If that is implemented, then I think we can see some progress towards more permanent ceasefire. But again, the more you go, the harder it will be actually for Ukrainians to accept Russian demands. So we will see how it goes. And I think With the dynamics on the battlefield still very, a hot phase in both armies gearing up for the spring-summer campaign, with Ukrainians just launching a series of counterattacks in Donbass. I think this will be really much, much harder to agree anything compared to what they've done now, which was really the lowest hanging fruit available, because everybody's benefiting from it, and it was already done before, but in a slightly different form.
Thank you very much for that, Alexander.
Thank you.